Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more podcast for the Athletic School. Today, our guest speaker is Derick Grant. He's a performance mindset coach who had helped many professional athletes, CEOs, and many other people that wants to develop their mindset. So, Derek, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Derek, I wanted to start off with your story a little bit. I want to hear your side of the story. How did you start that journey of mental life, mental coaching? When did you figure out that there was I wouldn't say a problem, but when did you see that as as an opportunity to help other people?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give you the short version of it because I could probably go on for hours about it. But
Yeah.
basically, about 4 years ago, I had reached such a low place in my life. I had um, kind of a falling out with a business partner. And before I knew it, we had lost everything, me and my family. And I was at such a low place mentally. Being a former athlete, I had never like with sports when you have a hardship you can just work your way through it. And this was different. I had never had like a hardship in the real world like this, and I didn't know what to do. And I never forget, I was just kind of in this lowly dark place, and this thought came in: shift the way you look at it, shift your perspective. And that was kind of when the journey, when it began, of like realizing like, wait, I can change the quality of my life by changing the quality of my thoughts. And realizing in my own life how much it helped me, I started to look at other people who I was close to, family, friends, and then the athletes that I worked with. It's like, wait a minute, it's great that we're working out and we're working on our skill set, but if we develop our mindset, you can hit a whole nother level. So that's kind of how I got to be what I am today.
Awesome. And I agree with you. It's kind of like how we started athletic school, especially, our audience is mainly athletes.
Sure.
And like the other day, I saw Novak Djokovic is a tennis player. He was talking about how tennis, it's also mental. And like if you get the top 100 tennis players in the world, their skills in terms of tennis are pretty much the same,
Yep.
but their mindset, their mental game, it's what kind of dictates how good they are.
Yep.
So yeah, I agree with you. I love your sweatshirt, by the way.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I wanna ask you about that. What life is mental means to you? You already talked a little bit about it, but
Sure.
what? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, it's funny when I realized I went on this journey to figure out like, what is the mind? Why do we have thoughts? How does it dictate our lives? When I started to realize that, wait a minute, it's not what's going on out in the world, it's how I'm processing and dealing with it internally. I realized, I was like, wait a minute, this glass isn't half empty or half full until I say it is up in my mind. Life is mental. And this was kind of like my tagline, but then it's really grown as a brand. And now I'm trying to get people to realize like, your mind literally is your life. Your thoughts are your life. It's not the circumstances, it's your thoughts around it. And that's kind of the premise behind life is mental. And I tell people all the time, like, I'll wear this shirt or this tagline for the rest of my life every single day. You'll never not see me wear it.
That's awesome. And yeah, I love that. And I think when we talk about mental life and mindset, that are, I mean, we can talk here for hours and hours, and we probably won't discuss all the aspects of mindset and how to have a good mental life. But in a general perspective, and I want to hear from you, what are some of the key elements of having a good mental life? Is that, can you point it out some of them? I know there are probably so many, but
Yeah, this is why I believe, honestly, why mindset gets overlooked. It's because it's not material, it's not physical. We can't see it. I can't look at someone and be like, wow, he has a supreme mindset, unless I see their performance. Really, at the end of the day, it's about you taking accountability and being responsible for your thoughts and your emotions. I always call it the unseen world. A lot of times people don't realize how we've been taught to be unaccountable for our thoughts and emotions. So a lot of times I hear people or clients say, well, he made me mad. Coach didn't do this. And I'm telling them, do you realize that you're allowing someone else to have control over your thoughts and your emotions?
yeah,
That's you. literally giving your power away. So really I always tell people that if there's one thing you can do, become aware of what you are thinking, become aware of how you are feeling. If you can increase your level of self-awareness, that's kind of like the one-stop shop that'll take care of everything.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Do you think we can control our thoughts, or can we just control the way that we react to them?
Yeah, I think because we all have thoughts that pop in our head and it's like, wait, where'd that come from? I would never think that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have 100% control over our thoughts, or it's we have control over how we act upon them and how we deal with them. So like I have negative thoughts just like everybody else. LeBron James has negative thoughts just like everybody else. The difference is, well, we would classify people as high performers. They don't allow the negative thoughts to become who they are. They keep their thoughts separate from who they actually are. And I always tell people, you are not your thoughts. You are observing your thoughts. Just like when I look at a tree, I know I'm not the tree because I'm observing the tree. The key was to keep separation. But with a lot of people, what we do is because we have low self-awareness, we think that we are our thoughts. So we'll say, I'm anxious and I'm depressed. No, you are having anxious thoughts, completely different energy.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. And yeah, and again, you mentioned about being self-aware, and I think that's, I don't know, there's no way to explain that because you hit the it's the key point. And I feel like so much people miss that. They think like, oh, what can I do to become a better player? And then there's all these skills and all these techniques that you can do mentally and physically to become a better player, to perform better. But and that's when you come back to awareness. And then the Stoics, from Stoicism, they talk a lot about that. It's basically focused on what you can control and things that you can control. And
That's it.
you focus on the things that you can't control, you start losing control of the things that you would be able to control. So I mean, I love that.
Absolutely. I think this is what induces a lot of suffering in mankind. It's trying to control things that you can't control. And I literally have broken down my life into two categories: control and can't control. If I can't control it, it gets zero of my energy. And if I am giving energy to it, there's a deeper lesson that I need to learn so I can increase my self-awareness not to give energy to it anymore.
Awesome. Yeah. Another thing that I've seen a lot of your videos and you talk a lot about it, and something that I always think with myself, it's when it comes to mental health and mental strength. So I want to hear your thoughts on that, because I feel like they're connected and they are kind of close to each other, mental health and mental strength. But I don't know, just tell me your thoughts about it, because I feel like a lot of people, they get confused on what is mental health and what is mental strength.
Yeah. So from my perspective, how I process mental health is I look at the first four letters in the word health, and it's heal. A lot of people don't realize that in order to be healthy, you have to heal. So for my mental health, I have to go back and deal with things in my past that maybe I'm ashamed of, or maybe I'm fearful of, or I regret, and process those so I can heal from them. And that will inevitably increase my mental health. Mental strength is you having the ability to continue and use your mind in a productive way, even when things look like they're not working for you. But you can't do that if you're not healthy mentally. So this is where the two kind of feed into each other. And if I'm a big cause and effect guy. So it's like, I tell people all the time, if we just take care of the first cause, which is you healing, that will make your mind healthy, which will then give you the strength when it's needed. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I was about to ask you that, because I feel like in order for you to be strong mentally, you need to be able to heal yourself first, right? So I think that's a really important thing that we need to become aware first to realize that. So
Sure.
um,
It's
yeah, go ahead.
no, I just say it's funny when we look at our physical body. It's like if I have a hurt arm, my hurt arm's not going to be very strong. So I have to heal it first before I can make it strong. The same goes for our mind.
That's a really good way to look at it. So you work with many different people, from CEOs to teachers and professional athletes. Um, what are some of the things that you see that these people have in common?
Yeah, I always tell I tell people all this, and I work with people who are we would consider successful, and once you tear away all the surface stuff, we all have the same issues, all of us. And really what it comes down to, Igor, is we have this question inside of us: are we good enough? Are we enough? And I don't care who you are, we question, are we good enough? And then what we do is we seek validation and approval from others, so that would deem us enough. This is one of the illusions that the ego creates, that we're not good enough. And from what I found is we all have this hole inside of us of wanting to know that we're enough, but it can only be filled by ourselves, of us knowing that we're enough. Not because mom said I was enough, not because of my money, not because of my playing time. It was me realizing that I was enough just as I was. But I couldn't get to that realization until I got rid of all the crap behind me that said I wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how do you do that in a daily basis? How do I tell myself and convince myself that I am good enough and I don't need coaches or moms or friends and girlfriend approval?
Yeah, so basically what I do is, like, I'll sit with myself and journal. I'll journal, and I will literally feel this lower emotion of like, oh, I'm not good enough. And then I'll write out how I feel. And the reason why I'm doing that, because the only reason why you feel that way is because you're unaware of why. When you become aware of why you feel that way, now that energy has to dissipate. So I always tell people, especially guys, get in the habit of journaling. Journaling is powerful. Like, it is a game changer. And if you can do it every day, I wake up every single morning, 5:30 in the morning, I sit down on my couch and I write whatever I'm feeling for that day. And the reason why, I may be thinking about hot dogs, but the reason why I'm doing that is so when the day gets started, I'm aware of what I'm thinking, because I've been strengthened in this muscle of awareness every single day. So journaling is a huge thing. I always tell people. And if you can, meditation is powerful. Meditation is another form of strengthening your awareness. But really, at the end of the day, it's about you becoming more aware of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you. And I feel like, especially guys, we see as journaling as something useless. But there's the book called Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which is basically his journal.
Yeah,
And he was doing for himself. He wasn't doing for anyone else.
right.
Just to remind himself of the things that he needed to do, the things that, like, he felt that was important, or the things that were valuable for him, how he felt about this. And it's crazy how he started the book saying like, oh, I learned this from my mother, I learned this from my father, this from my teacher. And then as you go on, it's just reminders for him to stay calm, to control the things that he can.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was a Rome emperor, and and I feel like we're a little far away to be an emperor, but I think we can use the same thing that he was doing and be an emperor of our lives.
That's what I was about to say. We're all emperors. We're all CEOs. We're all presidents of our own life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And then I was gonna ask another question. When you work with your athletes, that's something that I was discussing with my partner here. What would you be your approach to a player that comes to you, and then that she has the skills to play, it's good enough, but for some reason they can't perform. There's almost like something blocking them to perform. How would you work that out?
Yeah. So actually, I see this a lot. Think of it like this: we're almost like, our minds are almost like computers, right? And it's like software. We have software that's uploaded when we're kids into our subconscious, and now this is the software that's playing over and over again. And why I say mean by software, this software basically determines how we view circumstances. So if you grew up in a positive family that was mentally strong, when you have tough times, your software is going to kick in and you're going to be like, no, I can get through this. I can figure this out. I will come from the vibration, the energy of courage. But if you grew up in a place in a house where you were constantly told you weren't good enough, constantly told that you were never going to be anything, now when tough times come, you're going to process this as, there's no way I can do this. What do I do? So when I start working with athletes, I could care less about what you can do on the court or on the field. I want to see what the software is. What's the program running? How did mom deal with conflict? How did mom deal with things when they didn't go her way? What did dad do? Whose approval did you seek? When you did well, who were you proud? Like, who made you most proud when they said, good job? Once we get to that, now I can see who are the placeholders in your life. So I actually have somebody who I'm working with now, and I had her write down the 5 people's approval who she's seeking. She gets in the game and she's afraid. She plays scared. She makes a turnover. She's like, oh no. Well, that's because she's seeking somebody's approval. Well, we found out it was her point guard's approval who she's seeking. And that's what's causing her to live in a state of fear. So I told her, I said, it's not really the point guard's approval who you're seeking. You need the approval of yourself. But because you haven't approved of yourself yet, you're seeking the approval of your point guard. And your approval of yourself is taught when you're young. So this is why I say, like, all of our issues that we have, no matter how old we are, they will go back to when we were younger, we were children, because that's when the software was being developed.
That's awesome. And I literally love how you go back in time, go back like deep down to figure out what the problems are. And I think we have so many problems that we try to fix just the surface of the problem, when we should be going to the roots of the problem.
Yes.
And
Yes.
there's like I don't know if people that are listening to us, you believe there's something called metaphysics, if I'm not mistaken. And then they talk about like how any pain that you have in your body, it's something related to basically your soul. So if you, I don't know, if your throat's hurting, for some reason, it's hurting and you're not feeling well, and most of the time it's because you are not saying something that you should have been saying. You're holding to that, and then it's just your body kind of telling you like, hey, this is wrong, like we got to speak up. And that there's many books that talks about that, but how like I don't know, back pain is something that you're trying to hold the word in your back. You're trying to carry all the load that the word has on your backs, and I think that's so interesting. And I feel like that's why, like, when you have a headache, we take a pill and it goes away, but then tomorrow we feel headache again. But well, maybe it's stress, maybe something else that you're not handling well, and we forget to go to where the problem is. And I think you mentioned that you do that with your players, and I think that's unbelievable, and I'm really glad you mentioned that. So that's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah. What are some 3 things, if you can name 3 things that we should avoid in terms of, I don't know, in terms of mental skills, I would say, but like, of course, we know that we should avoid self-doubt and stuff like that. But can you name 3 things that we should avoid all the time?
I always say the people who you surround yourself with, make sure you're not around people who are carrying a negative, lower energy. It's when you understand that like frequencies will attract like frequencies. I've been in toxic environments, and it will slowly, subtly pull yours down if you don't have the mental strength or the mental awareness to realize. So I always tell people, like, your energy is everything. Protect your energy. Be aware of who you're around. That's number 1. Number 2, we take for granted, especially young people, sleep is so vital. Sleep is so vital. And people are like, oh, well, I get up early. It's like, you can't get up early if you don't go to bed. You have to go to bed. Like, that's what I've learned. I get up every morning at 5 in the morning, but I go to bed by 9:15, 9:30. So like, that's the thing that quote unquote successful people don't tell you. It's like, oh, I get up early. I get up. Yeah, well, he didn't tell you went to bed at like 8:45. So sleep And then avoid things that put you in a lower state. That could be music, it could be people, it could be food. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, this life force that's flowing through you that we call energy, this is what you use to create. This is what you use to go out there and perform. When you have low energy, it's going to be really hard for you to perform at a high energetic level. So I'm very, very leery of anything that pulls me down. And like I said, that could be a conversation, it could be people, it could be food, it could be lack of sleep. Like there's days when I'm like, man, I'm just feeling low energy. I may wipe my schedule or move it to another day just so I can get myself back, because I know I don't have the energy to give what somebody else may need. So I always tell people, be aware of your energy and protect it and guard it, because literally it is your life force.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with you, because like talking to you and doing podcasts, it's something that I feel like it higher my energy, you know. And I actually was
Yes.
talking to my partner, and then he was telling me like, hey, I need to go back and start doing podcasts, because I'm not having the same conversations that we used to have, and that it's just making my energy level lower and lower. So I agree with you, and I think that's something that we should do like every day, and we should really be careful with the people that we are hanging out with. Environment shapes the man, and I mean,
Yes.
there's no other way. The content that you are consuming on social media, things that you are watching, people are you hanging out with, and I think that's the foundation for anyone to succeed. So yeah, I agree with you. And now, if you can name other three things that we should do, of course, these three things that you mentioned, of course, we can just do them in a good way. But if
Sure.
there is any other things that you think we should be doing.
Yeah, I always say, like I said journaling, meditating. Those are two powerful things. Really, if there was one thing to encapsulate it all, become aware of who you are and why you are the way you are. Ask questions. So, like I tell people, write down all of your fears, all of your insecurities, and now write down where they started, when, and why. And just by doing that, you're going to become more aware of why you are the way you are. When you do that, you will increase your level of self-awareness. When you increase your level of self-awareness, you will increase your level of self-worth. And as your self-worth goes up, everything else goes up, because you'll never exceed your self-worth. Whatever you think you're worthy of, that's where your performance will be. That's where your financial earnings will be. Everything will be based upon what you're worth of, what your self-worth is. So I always tell people, if there's one thing, and I know that's it's kind of broad or vague, but get to know who you are. If you look at the Greeks would always say, know thyself, right? And I've been telling people, you got to believe in yourself, but I believe, and I realize belief is just, there's another energy behind that, and that's knowing. There's a difference between believing something and knowing something. You needed to not only believe in yourself, you needed to know yourself. And that, I'm telling you, for me in my life, I'm telling you where I was 4 years ago, I know myself better today than I did back then. And my goal every day that I wake up is to learn a little bit more about myself every single day. No matter what happens, what conversations I have, what hardships come my way, I look at them as lessons that are teaching me another layer about myself. And that's really all life really is. You're on a journey to learn more about who you are.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's awesome. And once you know yourself, once you know, like, I am this type of person. I don't know, let's say I'm a hard worker, but I know my flaws. But how do we know when to change ourselves? Because I feel like when it comes to kind of like relationships, for example, or relationships not in terms of like my partner, but like as friends and any type of relationships, when I know that I don't have a lot of patience with people that are lazy, and
Sure.
because laziness for me it's something that I disagree, and I don't think people should be lazy at all. So that's something that takes my patience, and I know that about myself.
Sure.
So when do I switch that? When do I say, like, okay, Igor, you should be more patient with people that are lazy, even though you don't like lazy people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is where when we understand that there's 8 billion people on this planet, there are 8 billion different realities based on all these individual perspectives that we have. So I think more important, I always tell people, it's not about you having to agree with somebody. I was never supposed to agree with you. I was supposed to understand your perspective.
Mhm.
Completely different energy. So I understand kind of why you're lazy. I may not agree with it, but that's your perspective. I don't have to make that mine, and you don't have to make my perspective yours. So I always tell people, it's about you owning your own thoughts and your emotions and your actions, and understanding that somebody else's isn't right or wrong. That's just their own individual perspective that they have. So
Mhm.
being able, it's helped me immensely of like not having to argue. Of course, we know how social media can be. I have people send me DMs all the time who don't agree with my perspective. And I tell them, thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective with me. So now I can better understand you, but I don't have to make that my perspective now. And I don't have a problem with it. And we can actually like coexist together in a harmonious way. And it's like I said, that's why I said earlier, it's about us owning and taking responsibility for our thoughts and our actions and our emotions, and not expecting somebody else to own our stuff.
Awesome, awesome. That would be a good highlight reel for Instagram. Um, well, Derek, to kind of wrap it up, I have some other questions that I wanted to ask you, and that's a question that we always ask our guest speakers. What success means to you?
It's a great question. To me, success is you knowing that you didn't need anything to be successful. You
Mhm.
were already successful. It was about you realizing that there weren't things or having something or doing something that was going to make you successful. I always tell people that success is relative, greatness is relative. You're the one who defines it. You are the one who says what you are. Because really, at the end of the day, that's all you're ever going to be. You're going to be whatever you think you are. So if you think that you're successful, then you're successful. But what happens is we think, I have to have a Bentley, or I have to have a Rolls Royce, and I have to have this house. And the world has made us think, because we're taking on the world's perspective of what success is. Everything was of yourself. It was about your own individual world. The ancients used to say, as within, so without. Whatever you were on the inside, this was what was going to be on the outside. So I always tell people, everyone is successful. It's just, have you realized yet that you were successful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that, and I haven't heard that one before, and I think it's a good way to look at success.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, any books, any podcasts, anything you recommend people that are listening to us that they should read or listen to?
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about people, fears about money. And, I hear that all the time. They want to make more. There's a book by, the author's name is Kyle Cease, Cease. And the book is called The Illusion of Money. I always recommend, fantastic book. Fantastic. And it's not just money, but it's just this limited way of thinking. And he breaks it down to show it's not the actual money. It's not your stats. That's not the issue. It's the way you're looking at it. And it's a fantastic book. Podcast, I always tell people, I'm on season 3 right now of my podcast called Pathway to Your Results podcast. Streams on Apple and Spotify. And that's really, I go back and listen to my stuff all the time to kind of, because I'm always trying to learn and critique and see, oh, wow, I was at that level of awareness when I did that episode. So I always encourage people too on social media to reach out to me. Everything is DG Mindset, at DG Mindset, because I'm here to help you essentially get out of your own way and realize how powerful you can be.
Awesome. Well, Derek, again, thank you so much. I think it was really powerful conversations, and I feel like I need to go journal right now. Uh,
Uh,
I have so many insights, and I really think that people will be impacted by the things that you said, and even if other people don't, I can promise you that I am being impacted by you, and I love
no.
everything that you post, and it's really a pleasure for me to talk to you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Igor, for having me. And I love what you're doing. I love the athletic school. Keep going, man.
All right, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you.